Sweeping changes could be coming to Australia's political donations laws, with Labor hoping to wind back the spending just days after the world witnessed America churn through billions of dollars in its election. The proposal wants donations to individual candidates by benefactors like Clive Palmer or the Climate 200 group capped at $20,000 a year.
Parties would be limited to $90 million nationwide, and no more than $800,000 could be tipped into single electorates. Lots to dig into here. Let's go straight to our political reporter, Tom Lowrey at Parliament House. Tom, good morning. So these changes appear to be aimed at some of the country's wealthiest donors.
Yeah, good morning, Emma. There's been a concern among the major parties for some time about the influence of particularly wealthy donors, including people like Clive Palmer, on Australian politics and how much influence their money can have when it comes to election time. And it seems that's what these changes are aimed at. They're really threefold. They go to donations, so how money is raised, how money is spent by candidates and by political parties, and how those donations are disclosed as well. I'll talk you through the changes. Firstly, on donations, there's a cap of $20,000 per individual for a candidate. So any person can donate a maximum $20,000 to an individual candidate. Secondly, there's a cap of $600,000 across an election campaign more broadly. So someone like Clive Palmer, a particularly wealthy individual like that, can spend a maximum $600,000. That's the most they can donate. For context, he's donated tens of millions of dollars to his own party in the past. On the spending side of things, candidates can't spend more than $800,000 in a specific race within their own seat, and parties can't spend more than $90 million. That is less than the major parties have spent in the past. At the last election, both Labor and the Coalition spent more than $100 million. It also means a group like Climate 200, which backed the Teal Independents at the last campaign, may have to register as a political party. And lastly, on disclosures, there's a new cap of $1,000. So instead of having to donate anything over $17,000, as was the case in the past, now any donation over $1,000 will need to be declared, and also in real time. So some significant changes on the way there.
Tom, Parliament returns on Monday. What sort of reception do you think these changes are going to get?
Yeah, Emma, the government has been working with the Coalition on this to try and build bipartisan support, and they're relatively confident they will be able to get it. They say the Coalition will likely want to make some tweaks, but there is broad agreement there. The reception from the crossbench might perhaps be a little more frosty. There's suggestions this is a stitch-up to try and entrench the power of the two major parties and reduce the power of the crossbench within the Parliament, though they will like the idea of the donation disclosure laws that I mentioned before. We are potentially likely to see a challenge in the High Court from someone like Clive Palmer too, testing as to whether there are limits around freedom of political communication that come with these changes. Here's the Labor frontbencher Murray Watt speaking on these changes earlier.
We are seeing an increasing arms race when it gets to political donations and the amount of money that's being spent on election campaigns. And I think all Australians have an interest in trying to keep big money out of politics, try to keep it clean, and try to make sure that this actually functions as a democracy where everyone's vote counts rather than just the richest people in our communities.
So, Emma, there is a push for bipartisanship here. The government doesn't want to be seen to be creating laws that affect the other major party in the Parliament when it comes to election time. It's also worth noting that these changes won't take effect until 2026, so until the next federal election, not in time for the election coming up next year.
OK, Tom Lowrey, thank you.
Australia has broken ranks with the US voting in favour of a draft United Nations resolution to recognise the permanent sovereignty of Palestinians have over their natural resources in occupied territories. Ruby Cornish is across this story for us this morning and joins us now. Ruby, what do we know about the proposal?
Hi, Catherine. Well, this draft UN resolution recognises the sovereignty that Palestinian people in the occupied territory have over access to their natural resources. And what that means in practice is demanding that Israel not interfere with the infrastructure that supports access to those natural resources. So things like water pipes and sewage systems and electricity grids. And also demanding that Israel not confiscate the land that Palestinian people live on or the farmland that they may work work on. Now, 155 countries voted in favour of this resolution, including Australia, but it is just a draft resolution. It still needs to go to the UN General Assembly, where it will be further discussed, and then there'll be a final vote. But in doing this, Australia has notably broken ranks with Israel and the United States, who perhaps unsurprisingly voted against this resolution. The Israel-Australia Jewish Affairs Council has been particularly critical of Australia. It's pointed out that since 2003, Australia has either abstained from voting on this resolution or has voted against it. So it does mark a change. And it is indeed one of a number of actions the Albanese government has taken in recent times that signals a hardening of our attitude towards Israel's actions in Gaza. In December, Australia voted in favour of a ceasefire. In May, it voted in favour of allowing Palestinian observers to full UN membership. But in relation to this proposal, a spokesperson for Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong says while Australia doesn't necessarily support everything in this resolution, it's important because it reflects growing international concern about Israel's actions in Gaza and, in this case, the Palestinian people's access to their natural resources in that region. Catherine.
Ruby, thank you so much for the update, and we will stay across this story across the morning.
Well, Australia could benefit if Donald Trump walks away from action on climate change. That's according to the Prime Minister. Anthony Albanese is at the APEC meeting in Peru, where world leaders are discussing the impact of the US election outcome and President-elect Trump's plans to erect new trade barriers and withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. The Prime Minister says Australia is well positioned to attract investment in green technology and manufacturing if the US removes incentives introduced under President Joe Biden.
Potentially, given Australia's position in the world and the resources that we have, there are potential benefits if there are changes in US policy.
Victorian parents and teachers are pleading for urgent improvements to traffic safety around schools following 2 fatal crashes in the state since October. The separate incidents happened at a preschool and a primary school. Experts have raised concerns about the number of regional schools built near busy highways without adequate safety measures.
An outbreak of the deadly parvo virus in Adelaide has prompted an urgent warning to South Australian dog owners. The RSPCA says it has confirmed cases in the city's northern and western suburbs. Vets say owners should seek immediate assistance if their dog experiences symptoms such as diarrhoea, loss of appetite, lethargy and repeated vomiting.